Welcome again, and let's go ahead and get into our introductions. I am Laura Aldridge. I'm your student's homeroom teacher, and I teach reading and writing and language arts and all things related to words. And I have loved having your students this year. They are a breath of fresh air. Yes, last year I spent all year in the dark dungeon of virtual learning, and I'm so glad to be out in the light with human beings again. And I am especially glad to be with your particular human being. And I'll let Ms. Baker introduce herself.
Oh, sorry. I was checking attendance. Hi, I am Miss Baker, and I am the co-teacher in Miss Aldridge's classroom when she is teaching language arts. So I'm in here for 2 hours every day with your wonderful, wonderful children, and I love them very, very much. I'm going to continue checking attendance.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Baker. She's also monitoring the chat. I am going to open up the chat. So if you have any particular questions or anything like that, I'm going to open that up for you right now, perhaps. Yep. All right. So the chat is open. If you don't have the chat open, I'm going to show you where that is right now. Inside your Google Meet, there are a few things that we can take care of for housekeeping. First of all, thank you, all of you, for making sure your microphone is muted. Please keep your microphone muted. That keeps any feedback or squelching or squelling happening for the audio. There is a chat box that is available to you in the very bottom of your screen. You'll see the box that looks like a little talk speech bubble. You can click on that and a new window will appear, or a window will appear within the Meet, and that'll be a place where you can ask questions. That'll also be a place where you technical questions. That'll also be a place where Ms. Baker will post some important links, an attendance link, and also a SMART goal link at the end of our presentation. So that's where you'll be able to access those things. If you're having trouble hearing me, or if the audio is poor, then you can turn on captions, and Google will automatically translate what I'm saying into the captions that you can read along with. That's really nice and fancy. All right. Let's talk about a little bit of background information just to make sure we're all on the same page. Academic parent-teacher teams is really a system of parent-teacher collaboration. It's where we come together at each grade level and we work on foundational skills. Teachers identify these foundational skills based on a variety of different data sources that we have from year to year. Fifth grade is focused on two particular skills: vocabulary development through Greek and Latin roots, and also multiplication development. If you are wondering what standards those are, we're going to share with you those in just a minute. Academic parent-teacher teams meet at the beginning of the year to talk about where your baseline is for your student. We meet at mid-year, which is this meeting, number 2, to talk about how your student has grown. And then we meet at the end of the year to celebrate the growth of your student. So it really is all about a growth focus, strength focused, and celebratory focus. And I love that idea of that meeting. So this actually does have our academic team meeting number 1 that happened in September. Individual sessions happened in November. Some people got those, some people did not. That was needs-based. And then our whole group meeting is right now for February 8th. And then we're going to meet again in May to celebrate your students. I'm really excited. It really is a matter of time. When we talk about parent-teacher teams, we teachers pour into your students for 6 to 7 hours of a day. But that's only a portion of the time that your student has with a meaningful adult. You are your child's first and foremost teacher. You have taught them so much. You are raising beautiful human beings. I have 21 of the most wonderful people in my classroom every day, and you guys are doing a wonderful job at raising them. They are away from me all of those hours. 55% of the time they're away from me, and they're learning from you. And we appreciate everything that they are learning from you. We appreciate your support for reading goals, for reading every week. We appreciate your support in checking grades. We appreciate your support in checking on them and making sure they're okay. And you guys are so important. And that's one reason why APTT is also another important time where we can come together and talk about how your child is growing. And I hope you get excited about some of the growth you see tonight. Tonight, you're going to understand again what APTT data nights are and how it will help your child. You're going to learn a new foundational skill. We're going to talk about multiplication practice and vocabulary practice. So really, I talked about that in meeting number 1. But tonight you'll have some options, new options to practice those skills with. You'll learn your child's current progress in that skill. And I'll talk about the learning goals for your student. So first of all, let's talk about the learning activity. We don't want to present you with data without also giving you a resource that you can use. These are some of the resources that you received in the packet inside your child's backpack today. If you haven't dug through the abyss of your child's backpack, go ahead and check that out. If you need to, you feel free to walk away for just a minute and come back. Inside your child's backpack today is going to be a very large baggie. It looks like this right here. Inside the baggie, or actually on the outside of the baggie, is going to be your child's name and a number. That number is important. We're going to use that for identifying your student on the graphs in just a minute. Okay, so go ahead and get your learning activities, and let's talk about those. The very first learning activity we're going to talk about deals with the foundational skill of multi-digit multiplication. We chose this skill because math fact fluency is never going to go away. It's part of all kinds of facets of mathematics, from measurement to fractions, geometry, and basic number skills. It crosses all areas of math. It's also a grade level expectation. And this skill also, we hoped, would empower the family to kind of be together at home. So inside your baggie, you're going to find 2 sheets this time. They're pretty straightforward. The last time we gave you guys a couple of sheets that were game based. This is very practice based, but you can also play a game with this. Inside your baggie, you're going to find a couple of die. Okay, these are 6-sided die, so you only have digits 1 through 6, but that's a fine place to start. So each person can get 1 sheet. So your student gets maybe a yellow and you get a green. You roll the dice, and then using the grid that's on the page, you each insert whatever digit that you roll. So for example, if you roll a 6, then that's the highest digit. So you may want to put that in the highest place value. Now, I would not tell your student that yet. I would kind of let them figure it out, but I'm telling you to do it so that maybe you can have the upper hand on your kid. And by your example, perhaps they can then understand, hey, wait a minute, if I put the 6 in the highest place value, then that's going to affect my score, because once you place your digits inside the multiplication grid, you're going to multiply and come up with a product. Your product is going to be your score for that particular problem. And you don't have to do the whole sheet. Maybe if you just did 1 line, maybe you sit down with your child and you say, hey, we're going to have a 4 problem challenge. Then do those 4, and whoever has the highest sum of products or the highest sum of the answers, it can be the winner. They'll figure out, how did you get that so high? I rolled similar numbers to you. And then you can talk about, hey, well, if you put it in the higher place value, you're going to get a higher product. So those kind of math conversations are really cool to have with your student. And then it's just plain old good practice too. I do want to explain that there are some small boxes across the top of your grids. Those are for any kind of regrouping or carrying that you need to do. So that is inside your baggie, along with your 6-sided die and your expo markers. Okay, so feel free to use your expo marker. It might be a little big, but hopefully they'll work out. Okay, so those are your math practice activity games. You can also maybe you can do like a roll the dice, and maybe roll both dice, because you've got 16 problems here, and you could do like I'm going to roll both die, and whichever number I'm going to do, and we're going to see who gets it right. There's a lot of different ways that you could play it. Okay. And if you need more ideas on how you can use these 2 sheets to play games, reach out to me. I've got tons of nerdy ideas. I'm really good at it. So that is your practice activity for multiplication. All right, let's talk about our prefixes and suffixes and Greek and Latin roots. This is mine, so I'm really proud of it. We gave this to you in the fall as well. Our main focus in the fall was multiplication, but we wanted to go ahead and give you the list of Greek and Latin roots for your student and you to have, as well as cards, just to get them started because we were going to get started with that in our classroom as well. I don't know if you can see it behind me, but there is our beautiful Greek and Latin roots bulletin board that we've been building on with prefixes and suffixes inside the classroom. So, really, what this game does and what these cards do is just give your student a leg up. Um, so, the reason we chose this skill is because it helps students connect that new and unfamiliar words to words they already know and helps them understand new and technical words that they're going to come across in specific domains of science and social studies as they go into middle school. It improves spelling because we talk about spelling patterns with prefixes and suffixes, and it's also a grade level expectation. So, what we did was we have given you a sheet that's front and back. So, that's what's being shown to you on your presentation. And on the back side, you have the common roots for fifth grade. These are the ones that we selected. This is not an exhaustive list. There are a lot of Greek and Latin roots. This is a short list, if you can believe it. And from this short list, we have taught nearly all of them. Actually, Miss Baker, do we have like maybe 10 or so that we need to cover? Or did we cover all these already? We've done all of them. We did. And so now we're starting to add in more prefixes and suffixes. We're starting to also supplement with some other kinds of Greek and Latin roots too, just to supplement for your student. So on the front are suggestions for how to use, again, your expo marker if you want to, but also this huge pile of index cards. I had students who I gave the bags to, and they were like, what are the index cards for? What are we going to do with those? And these index cards are great for making Go Fish card games. Go Fish card games are where you have 5 cards that are dealt to each player. You can have 2 or 3 or 4 people play. So incorporate other people in your house if you want to. This is a big group kind of game that you can play together. You can give 5 cards to everybody. Put all the cards face down between the players. They're messed up, and you have to try to match up your card with you try to match up your root to the matching meaning. That's what I'm trying to get out to you. So the first step actually is to make your cards, and I suggest that you have your student make your cards because that will help them to actually put that into memory or review them again. So on one card they have aqua, and on another card they have water. So then as you play Go Fish, then the youngest player says, do you have an aqua, because maybe in their hand they have water, and if that person has aqua, then they take it and they make a match. So the whole point is to make matches. The game can be won a couple of different ways. You can do it by points, or you can do it by who gets 10 matches first, or however you want to do that. You can do it by who gets the most matches and all the cards are gone. That's completely up to you. These are also really great for flashcards, and I know that this is kind of a repeat from what you got the first time we met, but now really is the time where practicing these and putting them into memory is important. So they've learned them here at school, and now they're practicing them and placing them in their memory just by exposure again. When we play sports, we don't play softball one season and then get softball scholarships. We play softball a season and then we play it again and we get better. And then we play it again and we get even better. We play it again and we get even better. And then we start getting softball scholarships. And so that's kind of the way I want you to imagine these activities that you do with your student. So we've laid the foundation inside class. Miss Klein and Miss Payne have talked about how to multiply whole numbers, and we have talked about Greek and Latin roots, and now we're in the deep practice season so that they can master those particular skills. So let's see how well your student has mastered these particular skills. So let's view the data. Now, I'm recording this for parents and families who may not be here this evening. And so I'm going to speak to them for just a second. If you are a family member or a parent who's watching this video and it is the makeup video for you, you've been sent a copy of your student's data chart and the number of your student that represents who they are from your teacher. At this point, you can get that out or access that digital graph. I'm going to be showing my homeroom's graph and numbers. And at this time, you can open up yours and we'll talk about those. Okay, so families who are live in here, I'm talking to you again, and let's go ahead and view our data for mathematics. For the mathematics assessment, your student received the very same test that they got on the very first APTT benchmark. This graph shows both the very beginning pretest before any kind of instruction was given and the interim or the mid-year mark for the multiplication. The multiplication test was 10 multi-digit multiplication problems. The green bar that's going up and down represents your student's very first pretest score. The blue bar represents your student's most recent score. Now, if you will sit tight, what I'm going to do is in Class Dojo, I would like to share a digital version of this that I made. It's a link, okay? So I'm going to send it on Actually, let's see. I'm going to put it in the chat. Let me put it in the chat. Because I know that the last meeting that we had, some of you had difficulty viewing your students' data on the Meet. And so I made a link to a website that you can go to that has both of these graphs on them. And depending on what kind of device you're using, you'll be able to open that link up and maybe zoom in and out a little bit better and manipulate that to be able to see it. Okay. Hopefully that will be helpful. We'll see. All right, so taking a look at that graph as well, at going across the graph, you're going to see a blue line or a blue bar that is at the number 6. That was the goal for mid-year for every student. Miss Klein wanted every student to be able to get 6 multi-digit multiplication problems correct, okay? So I have students who are still working on this skill. I have students who have met the skill, and I have students who have gone beyond the skill. Now remember, the number for your student is located on your bag, okay? So find your number on your bag. If you can't find the number for your bag at this moment, send me a dojo. I had some folks who had that same problem at the first meeting. If you can't find your bag or if you can't find your number, send me a dojo. I'll be glad to send you these graphs through dojo, probably tomorrow though, okay? So if you're having difficulty finding your number, I'm sorry I can't give it to you right now, but I will get it to you tomorrow without fail, okay? So this is where your student is for the mid-mark for multi-digit multiplication, okay? So we're going to continue working on that skill. That does need some attention. And now let's look at Greek and Latin roots. This is also in the link that I just sent you in the chat. That is the second slide or the second picture inside that website that I just sent you for the graphs. So taking a look at that, we have a lot to celebrate because the green line represents the beginning of the year pretest that my students took, your students took. And then the blue line represents where your student is now with Greek and Latin roots. Our goal for the mid-year is the bar that goes across, that blue bar that goes across. I wanted students to know 25 Greek and Latin roots by this time this year. And if I'm not mistaken, earlier today, I went across there and I ran my finger across every student. And so far as I can tell, every student in my room has either met the 25 Greek and Latin root goal or have exceeded it. And if you're not clapping for your kid, please clap for him now. That makes me so proud. I'm very, very happy about that. Sometimes it's difficult to put things to memory like Greek and Latin roots, and they have done an extremely good job. By the end of the year, I want my students to know all 40 Greek and Latin roots. So we still have some work to do. We're not all perfect yet, but we are getting there. So I am so, so proud of them. If they're within earshot, I'm proud of you, kiddo. You've done me proud, and I couldn't be happier. And I hope you are also proud of them, parents. All right. Again, if that is too small, you can't see that, shoot me a dojo. We'll take care of that. If you can access the link, then I hope that's working out for you. Okay. All right. Next, we're going to be setting some SMART goals. SMART goals represent specific, measurable, attainable, and relevant time-bound goals that we can set for our students. I'm going to give you some examples right here that we're going to take a look at. Nope, I don't have examples on here, but I'm going to give you some examples that you can use. When we set our SMART goal, we're already going to have a time base that's 60 days, because in about 60 days, we'll have our third and final APTT meeting. So what can we do in 60 days? Well, I want you to take a look at your students' current progress. I'll go back to the graphs in just a second. And I want us to write a realistic 60-day goal for our student. There's a Google form that I'm going to share in the chat, and you'll fill out that form that's going to be in the chat. So specific. I want you to think about goals that are specific to multiplication, multi-digit numbers, and goals for your Greek and Latin roots. How many problems do you want your student to be able to master and get correct on that math? And how many Greek and Latin roots do you want your student to be able to know? It makes absolute sense that all of us as parents would want our kids to know, to have all 10 of those problems correct and know all 40 Greek and Latin roots. But the other part of the SMART goal is that it's attainable. It's very difficult for children to be perfect if they're struggling to learn those things, or if they're having specific difficulties with it. So we want to make sure our goals are attainable and relevant for your student. So we have specific, it's going to be either about multiplication or it's going to be about Greek and Latin roots. Actually, both of them tonight. It's measurable. How many do you want them to get correct? Attainable, taking a look at how your student is performing. What do you think that they can do next? And then relevant for your student. How does it apply to your student? And time bound is, of course, in 60 days. That'll be about the time that we have our third academic parent teacher team. So, Ms. Baker, if you'll go ahead and share that SMART goal link inside the chat, that would be awesome. She's going to share that for us. And there it is. And when you click on that Google form, this is what's going to pull up. It says 5th grade virtual APTT SMART goals. This is for number 2. It may go ahead and collect your email address. It's going to ask for your student first and last name and your homeroom teacher. That's me. I'm Miss Aldridge. It says virtual, but I'm no longer virtual. Thank goodness. I loved those babies, and I loved being able to do that, but I'm really glad to be in the classroom with real people. The next question asks for your student's current score or skill, and I'm going to put those graphs back up. Also, you can get them from the link inside the chat. And then, what do you want your students in 60 days? I want my child, let me make this a little bit bigger. There we go. In 60 days, I want my child to know how many of 10 math problems. And you're going to give me how many you want them to know. And then also for your Greek and Latin affixes and roots. Today, my child knows this many Greek and Latin roots. And then the next one says in 60 days, I want my child to know how many. Okay. Then it asks you who's going to help your student practice those skills. You can click as many of those individuals as you want to, and it may even be a completely different person. How many times do you plan on practicing that particular skill? And then how many minutes do you plan on practicing that particular skill? And then when you're finished, you can click submit. Okay. All right. The other link that I'm going to have available in the chat. So you have the SMART goals. It starts with forms. That's the SMART goals. The next one is attendance. And that is one that proves that you were here. That's the one that we use in order to give your student credit for exceptional Eagles, expectations, extravaganza stuff, and also for their icy. Because come on, the only reason APTT is important is because we get ices. I'm just kidding. Ms. Baker just posted that form as well. So that is attendance. That does give your student credit for you being here. And I so appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our presentation and put up the goals again, or actually put up the graphs for you to see. There's the multiplication. I'll leave that up for just a few minutes. And then I'll switch it to the reading. Is that helpful for everyone? In the chat, if you'll let me know if you are using that, or if you're not using it, or if the link to, what do you guys prefer? You kind of tell me what you need to see and I will put it up. You can either unmute or you can chat in the chat box. One more time. Hi, how are you? One more time, Miss Knox, go ahead.
I have a quick question. The multi-digit forms you're talking about are the ones that's in the packet that the kids need to work on. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm not understanding your question. Ask me one more time.
Talking about if our kids need to work on the multi-digit multiplication. Is that the forms, like the laminated sheets that's in the packages? Those are the examples.
The forms that I'm talking about for you to fill out are inside your chat. You're on your phone. Are you on your phone?
Yes, ma'am. I'm on my phone.
What I'm going to do is, if you are a grown up on a phone, then I'm going to send these forms through Dojo for you to fill out. So the forms that I'm talking about, let me show you really fast what I'm talking about so you can see, oh yeah, I probably do need to do that off of the meet. You probably need to be off the meet in order to fill out the form, because that's what it looks like. Do you see that right there?
I did those. I just did it. I just submitted it.
Sorry.
I'm math forms. Are these the math forms that they can practice on?
Yes, I'm so sorry. Yes, they are. Yes, they can. And there's a marker inside the bag too to dry erase. That's why they're laminated nice, so you can wet erase them and dry erase them if you want to. Yes. And one thing that I'll tell some of you too is that as your student masters these, a great idea is to throw a decimal at them. Put a decimal in there. Make one of those. Maybe make this 1 point something and put a decimal in there and start talking to them about that. That is a skill that Miss Klein, they're in fractions right now. Okay. So they have done the whole number multiplication and division. They've gone into fractions now. She will make the connection between fractions and division shortly, and that will roll into multiplication and division of tenths and hundredths, which are decimal representations of fractions. And then she'll start talking about multiplying and dividing with decimals. So if you throw in a decimal, just know your student might look at you like you're nuts. They don't know what you're talking about, but you can preload that for them. Absolutely do that. That's a challenge. So if your student is like blowing this away, throw a decimal at them and see what happens. Great question. Thank you for that. Sorry about that. Any other questions? All right. Again, if you have a specific question about your student, I want to address that. That's important to me. You're important to me, and your student is important to me. And I want to know that and get to that on Class Dojo. That way we keep the privacy and respect each one's privacy there. Again, if you were unable to, let me go back to the graphs because I told you guys I'd go back to the other graph. There we go. Let me go to the Greek and Latin root graph. There it is there. If you are unable to get that link for yourself, then I will go ahead and share. I'll just share all these links in Class Dojo. So you'll have access to the graphs and the attendance form and the SMART goal form. Okay. And if you have filled out your SMART goal form and your attendance form, then you have met the APTT meeting number 2 requirements, and I am proud of you and I appreciate you. And I can see you later. I won't close out.